Now I'm pleased to welcome our next speaker, Forrester Vice President John Rymer. John is a top expert on enterprise middleware, leading Forrester's application development and delivery coverage of cloud platforms. As the lead analyst on Forrester's application development strategy, sourcing, and structure playbook, he is an authority on the enterprise strategies of IBM, Microsoft, and Oracle, and contributes to Forrester's coverage of low-code application platforms and business rules platforms. Let's give John a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, I had hair back in that. And that was, it's kind of how long I've been doing this, I suppose. Great to be here, and thank you to Kintone for inviting me. What I want to do is share research that we've been doing now for 4 or 5 years, into what we call the low-code phenomenon, sometimes no-code. It's really big. Dave connecting this movement, this set of advances to digital business is absolutely spot on. This is really big. I'll shift the slide here. See, I've been at this for a long time. I can spell 4GL, and I've heard the complaints about, oh, this is just 4GLs all over again. Well, it's not, and the needs are totally different. I'm coming at this very clear-eyed. I'm not a kid, as you can see, and this is really big, and we have to work very hard to continue to progress on this, but it's real. And it's a very exciting time, probably the most exciting time. I've been doing this 20-some years, and it's probably the most exciting time I've seen in application delivery in all that time. We coined the term low code, so if you don't like it, you can blame me for that. The reason we use the term low code was very pragmatic. We do research. I do research. And what I try to do with research is to help people progress, people like you progress in their strategies. Low code started as a phenomenon for professional developers. And I just knew in my bones that if we labeled it no code, nobody would read the research. Developers don't believe it. Even if it's true, sometimes it is true, sometimes it's not. But even if it's true, they don't believe it. I wanted them to read the research. I wanted them to see what was going on here. Since that time, we've progressed into low code for business people. We call them business developers. And so we see no code a lot. No code's an attractive message. It's basically a different flavor of the same set of advances. Anyway, let's jump into this research, and hopefully give you some thoughts and inspirations about how you can really drive your efforts forward. You're really into something very profound. First, this is a really hot market. Dave mentioned billions of dollars going into product development in this market. We're starting to see acquisitions now that are very, very, that are anticipating or based on really high valuations. The reason is because there's big growth here. There's a lot of companies, first of all, but there's also big growth. Some of the growth rates that we've seen over 100%, over 75%, some of the vendors. This is based on about 70 vendors that I keep track of and track their revenue and growth rates and average it out. It's a really robust market. And the reason it's robust is because low code is addressing a gap that we have in software delivery. We and the Bureau of Labor Statistics all have estimates on the numbers of developers out there, professional developers, people who write Java or C# or JavaScript or what have you. Everybody's documenting a gap, a shortage of developers. Bureau of Labor Statistics here in the States says 500,000 just in the States. We need 500,000 more developers just in the States to meet demand. We're not going to get there. We're not going to, coding camps, universities aren't producing them fast enough. We're not going to get there. So people are changing the work. Companies are changing the way they deliver software. They actually need more software than they ever have before. So they're changing the work, and this is the role that low code has come to play, both for pro developers and for business, citizen developers and business developers. This growth started to happen when we came out of the recession around 2010. You probably remember that time. It was like all of a sudden you saw companies, it was almost like a sigh of relief. It was like, oh, the economy, the macro economy is finally, finally moving again. Things are returning more to normal. We haven't done anything for our customers in about 2 to 3 years. We need to innovate. And you start to see just an explosion of technology-based innovations coming out, particularly with mobile. You remember that? That's when Uber really came out, and really used technology in very, very novel ways. The other side of this is the point that Dave was on. The other need was the point that Dave was on. Those mobile applications oftentimes were digital illusions. So they made that company look really easy to do business with. And if you were on the happy path that mobile app anticipated, that team anticipated when it designed the mobile app, everything was good. But 80-some% were not on the happy path, 80-some% of the cases. And so then you found yourself on phone calls with call centers who were unresponsive, or just the whole experience fell apart. That initial set of innovations on the customer experience drove and continues to drive a need to automate like we've never automated before, the operational processes that we use to win, serve, retain customers, whoever they are. So all of both the innovations and the automation side of this require a lot of new software. And that is really what's driving the growth here. Also, we have, with the advent of low-code environments, low-code platforms, as cloud services, we suddenly had a really good way to capture and kind of harness all of the work that you all have been doing on spreadsheets or Access databases, or back in the day, Lotus Notes, other kinds of environments to get your work done, which were largely unmanaged. A spreadsheet runs on your laptop. Maybe you back it up, maybe. And then you've got the problem of multiple sources of truth and so forth. All of that work is really valuable, but it's even more valuable if we can move it to a managed platform, which is what the combination of low-code and cloud provided. And so we started to see companies just to try to harness this activity that their business people were doing, just to try to harness it and manage it better, moving that work, or trying to get folks to move to low-code platforms in order to continue to do that work, but in a managed environment, avoiding security issues, multiple sources of the truth, availability issues, all the pathologies that we had with the so-called rogue IT. But in that movement, we began to see much more. So one of the interesting things that's going on is when you talk to a professional developer, some of them, the ones that maybe aren't so enlightened, they'll tell you, business people can't deliver software. Come on, it's just a spreadsheet. Yeah, they can, and they always have. And in the right environment, they can actually contribute to the software strategy. So I use this slide oftentimes with audiences of professional developers to say, look at, folks like this. These are not developers. And look at what they're delivering. Now, is it ERP? Is it the core accounting system? Is it the airline reservation system at American Airlines? No. But these are really valuable operational apps that otherwise would not get done. And again, if we're going to really digitize, these have to be automated. These are the kinds of things that have to be automated. So we've got the tooling and the environments available to empower people, as Dave was saying. They know their data, they know their operations, they know their processes, and they can, in fact, contribute to the automation, the digital strategy of the company. We just have to recognize them finally and really make them part of the strategy. And this is really, this is really connected to the whole digital transformation trend in a really big way. Every single client that we're working with, we've got about 4,000 clients, they all have IT, but those IT folks are not getting to the automation of the operational processes that are so critical to customer success. They are tied down in the boiler room. They're keeping Oracle alive, or they're keeping SAP alive, or what have you. These critical operational applications are the ones that never get off the backlog. They may not even be on the backlog yet. They're the famous long tail. And the only way they're going to get built is if business people either build them directly or lead projects to build them. Again, depending on the company or the complexity. So think about this. Digital transformations, like the stats Dave put up, I think are consistent with what we're seeing. A lot of failure out there, a lot of frustration. People are stuck. The way they get unstuck, the way they make progress, is to empower their business people. It's that simple. It's not simple to implement, though, which is why we're here today. It's straightforward to get started here, but we're talking about fundamentally changing the way that that we deliver software in our companies. And it's not just the developer and IT domain anymore. It's everybody's job. So, exciting times. But we've got to figure out, I think at this point, there's a ton of proof points. There's a ton of value. And I'm talking substantial applications, modest-sized applications, all kinds of applications business people are delivering, but we need to really step up a level and scale this up. We need to make it part of our overall software strategies, and most of the clients I talk to, that isn't yet the case. They're asking how do we get there? How do we do this? Because it's so different. We don't really understand how to do this. Well, we've done some research on this. We have some ideas about how we can make this growth happen. So we have to scale it up. We have to scale up the activities, the work that you all are doing, and in order to make it really fundamental to the way we deliver and really amp up the benefits and the amount of software that we're delivering. So scaling up, what does that mean? We got to be careful about that. Some people, when you say scale up to them, particularly in the technology sector, they think very, very large-scale applications, lots of data, lots of transactions, high availability, et cetera, et cetera. That's one dimension. That is certainly one dimension. Mission-critical apps that we can't afford to have them go down, apps that handle big workloads. That is certainly part of what scaling up means. But another there are two other aspects of scaling up. One is numbers of users. So the app itself may not process very high-scale workloads, but thousands and thousands of our employees and partners and maybe even customers use those apps. So, and they may use them episodically, but there's lots and lots of users that use the app. And then the third dimension is the number of apps. One of the real changes that's going on in that low-code is enabling in application delivery is we don't take 18 months to a year to deliver a ginormous application that covers all kinds of requirements, everything we could have thought of. By the way, those things always fail anyway. We're not doing that. What we're doing is incremental development. Actually, the coders are doing this too. They talk about minimum viable products. And then They deliver that minimal, piece of functionality, and then they build on it, build on it, build on it. Same thing goes on in these low-code environments that are aiming to automate digital operations. You start small. You start with one thing, one piece of automation. It maybe covers a 10th or a 20th or a 30th of the whole customer journey, but that's okay. It works, and it's something to build on. And then you go again and again. Well, in this environment, the number of software projects that we're delivering is not tens per year. It's not even hundreds per year. It's thousands per year. Because these operational processes, there are thousands of them in your typical enterprise. And so the number of projects we're delivering goes up. And that's an aspect of scale. It really challenges the current thinking or the older thinking about governance. So first thing is to get your head around, in your organization, what does scale mean? Which dimension, and one way to think about this, which one of these dimensions are we really going to push hardest? Maybe we stay away from the very large workloads for now, and we focus more on the numbers of users or numbers of projects. But it's something to build into your project or build into your strategy and your thinking. Then we have to start thinking about 3 dimensions of our software strategies and how to bring them into alignment with this opportunity that we've got thanks to low code and cloud. People, process, technology. Each one of these really has some, we've really got to think about differently in creating our strategy. So technology is actually the least interesting of these 3. It's the least difficult of these 3. One of the services that Forrester offers to clients is client inquiry. Clients can call us up and ask us questions, and we try to help them through those questions. We get lots of questions that start out with, what product should I buy? We're looking at a no-code or citizen developer platform. Which one should we buy? And so we usually start with, well, who are you? What are you trying to accomplish? And I'll tell you, typically within 5 minutes, we're off of products and we're into orgs, people, organizational structures, governance. That's the hard stuff. But technology does come into play. And when on these 3 dimensions that I talked about earlier of, larger apps, lots of scenarios, more users, in thinking about which one of those you pursue, your technology designs, your architecture approach is going to vary on which of those technology characteristics each one of these 3 is going to torque the most. A couple of ones that I'll call out here. One is data architecture. If you're working with lots and lots of data or lots and lots of data that changes a lot, or lots and lots of integrations, that's not something you can just assume is going to work out. You got to really think about how you're going to organize the data architecture that is part of your overall low-code platform strategy. Reusing integration adapters, if you've got, is a really important angle on this. Having some sort of data governance, particularly if the sources you're tapping are changing a lot, is really an important enabler, of the strategy. And then you see other areas in here like security, which our friend from AWS mentioned, which is so important, and performance and so forth. We don't have time to go into it today, but as you scale up, these factors become more important. Now, where are you going to get help on this? You're an expert in the business. You know your process, but you don't know security. You don't know application security. This is where partnering with your friends in IT is going to be really, really crucial, and we'll come back to that. The good news is that if you can get a partnership together, and I'm starting to see this a lot, with your friends in the IT groups, they can help you by solving some of these issues, by basically taking them off the table for you and allowing you then to focus on the automation. Okay, related to technology is something I hear a lot. The business models, the pricing models in this market are, shall we say, quite interesting, which means they can be kind of complicated. Part of understanding technology scaling is understanding how costs will behave as you scale up your engagement with your vendor. This is the way it basically works. It can get complicated at times, but you basically are usually paying either per user, per engine, or per asset, like per page or something like that. These models all exist out there. And then you've got, based on your scale, you've got certain constraints on your rights to use. Maybe you got enough. Maybe your license covers maybe 20% of your user population. To do more, you've got to raise it. Plus, there's a lot of discounting that goes on based on volume. This is something to get a handle on early, because I've seen it many times where people get involved, they start to create real value, and then they hit a wall. The procurement folks show up and go, "What the heck are you doing? How does this work? I don't get it." And you just don't want to go there. You just don't want to have to stop and stop your progress. So this is another factor to get a handle on. Now, the two more interesting ones are people and process. So first, we talk about citizen developers. I use the term business developers. Other people use other terms, citizen data scientist or citizen integrator, and blah, blah, blah. These are all very cute terms. But to have a real strategy, you really need to get clear about who your people are and about what they do and about what your people are capable of delivering when they take on one of these products. Research I've done, I've concluded there are three sort of archetypes or three persona within the overall term of citizen developer. These are people who don't work for IT, and they don't report into IT, and they usually don't do software for a living, but they do software. So power users should be familiar. I think everybody I've talked to, yeah, that's the gal or the guy that just tend to be younger, tend to be just fascinated by tools and tech, and they're very helpful, for sort of tactical things. That's I think a well-recognized role. The other two, not so much. So business developer, Dave mentioned some of the citizen developers that come out are heads of department, or they run departments, or they run business functions. That's your typical business developer. One of my favorite examples, a guy that I met in this research who ran the fraud department at a retailer. And the retailer was spun out of a larger company, leaving him with no tools for his department to do its work. So 6 a.m., you'd find him in his local Starbucks, working with a cloud platform, a low-code platform. He's no tech in his background, just a business person. He'd be in his local Starbucks, building the apps that his team needed to do investigations and track schedules and schedule visits and interviews and all that kind of stuff. And he built all that by himself and provided it to his department. And then after working in his local Starbucks for an hour and a half or 2 hours, he'd go to his day job, catching crooks. So this is a very common phenomenon where the head of the department or someone who really knows that department will just take the ball and run with it and really produce some really important software. Sometimes those people graduate into what I call a line of business developer. The difference between a business developer and a line of business developer is the line of business developer, we recognize their software as being part of their job. So it's not all of their job, it's part of their job. And they report into the line of business head, the department head, not to IT. And but we recognize now that part of what they do is software. By the way, this gentleman that I mentioned worked for the retailer. He's now graduated. Software is a big part of his job now. The reason I think recognizing these roles is important is because we tend to be very casual about this work. The software work that business people do is really important. And yet we tend to sort of take it for granted. Oh, they'll do it in their spare time, but it's not in their job description. Well, you know, people are only going to give you their weekends and nights for a certain amount of time. And you can't go to them and rely on that labor unless it really is part of how they work and who their, what their jobs are. So I think essentially we've got to, get a better idea of who's really good at doing this software work. Not every business person is, and get to recognize, what are the characteristics that we should look for in people to promote them into this work. And secondly, we've got to take a really hard look at our job descriptions and our career paths. This is an idea that we've been out with for some time that takes those citizen developer roles and recognizes that they are role players within the overall software strategy, and they maybe have a career path that gets them into IT. Maybe they become technical people in what I call a rapid dev. These are the professional developers that prefer to work on low code. In the same way, we've got a lot of folks out there with the title of business analysts, and they don't produce software. They sort of contribute to software projects. But why don't we empower them to do so? Change the job description. They can do a lot of work. They're actually really smart about both software projects and oftentimes about the business. So it's really an appeal to let's think harder and recognize that this work is crucial to our success and is going on, and be smarter about how we manage our people. Process. The most important process change that we need to see is a partnership between the business developers and IT. This is so crucial. That gentleman that I mentioned from the retailer, when I asked him, well, where did things break down for you? You had success. What were the barriers you had to overcome? And he said, I didn't understand how to do a software project. So which requirements do I do first? And I was talking to my people, and they're telling me things that they need. I'm overwhelmed. How do I sequence this? And then I had no idea how to configure a platform. I had no idea about security and things like that. So he actually was able to get help from an IT colleague to overcome those issues. I think going forward that I just don't see any other way. I don't see any other way to do it. That the IT departments, the technical communities inside enterprises are going to have to play this support role. And I'm starting to see it happen. This is a diagram I put together that represents a composite of about 3 different companies. A big food distributor in Europe, a pharmaceutical firm actually in Japan, and a couple others that I've started to see. Where, as you can see, the business unit, the business people, are delivering the app. They're setting the priorities of what gets delivered first. They're determining their process for delivering that app, but they get a lot of help from their IT colleagues setting up the environment and the platform, configuring things like security, integration concerns, even helping them manage projects. Came across a case recently where it was a construction company. Construction companies are notoriously under-automated, by the way, which is, anyway, they're notoriously under-automated, and as a result, they run into all kinds of, if you work with contractors in your personal life, in your house, you know what that's like, right? They never do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, never. Same thing happens on big construction projects, it turns out, because they're not really well organized. So this firm decided to bring in a tool to help automate some of its operational processes. They brought in the tool, they gave it to these 2 guys who were business people, they're experts in operations, and within a week they were stuck. They tried to do too much. So actually the CIO said, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to spend about 4 hours, and we're going to go through and and I'm going to get you back on track. And all she did was get them to focus on the one important thing to deliver first. That was it. But think of this. This happens all the time where, oh, we're going to automate the process. And the next thing you know, the requirements start flowing, and you're stuck. So that even on project support, our IT colleagues who have done software projects forever can be very, very helpful. This is so crucial. You know, I'm really promoting this left, right, and center. And the thing is, it doesn't have to come from the CEO or the CIO as a big organizational change. Oftentimes, it can start to happen at a very organic level where you know somebody in IT and you just get help. And then you deliver something really useful. It's like, wow, let's do that some more. We can actually work together and produce huge value. You know, IT people get a bad rap. They want to make progress too. So a lot of IT people are actually excited by this. They want to do more of this work. And then on process, the last bit here is, yeah, we have to actively govern this work. This is crucial software work. This is work that our companies are relying on. So we've got to be very careful about governing changes and about governing the risks associated with software. This is from some research we did where we advocate 5 policies to govern low code. 5 policies that are either restrictive, little restrictive, or maybe more open, to try to balance the need to manage risks versus encourage creativity. And with that, I'll thank you for your attention. There's one other thing I want to say, that I was really inspired by the emphasis on teamwork that we heard earlier. I think this is profound. I think it's something that maybe we ought to carry back. 2 things that it meant to me. One was this partnership between the technical community, the IT folks, and business people. That's teamwork, and it's really, really, like I say, I think it's really, really important. The other aspect of this is one of the reasons, and Dave mentioned this, one of the reasons that, the big reasons that digital transformation efforts fail is because of silos, because of political barriers and organizational barriers that, when we're working with customers, they're on a journey with us, they don't care about our silos. They want to complete their journey. And so that's another form of teamwork that we've really got to solve if we're gonna digitally transform. So that was inspiring to me. I hope it was for you as well. Again, thanks very much.